Well, what I'm going to do, I'm actually working on an article on forgiveness from the Course in Miracles. Some of the basic principles of the Course in Miracles I'm integrating into this article. It's not complete yet, so I might have a little hesitation, but I want to share it with you to see if anyone has any feedback, any thoughts to add, text to me, or any things that occur to you that might augment this. I'm looking to make as concise a picture of the Course's view of forgiveness, of course supported by the Aramaic. It wasn't until after I learned and understood what forgiveness was and how it was done from the Aramaic that I recognized the instructions were right there in A Course in Miracles, specific step-by-step instructions. So the article starts out with, what is the world? How do I forgive? Some of you are probably familiar with either our 2-hour video workshop or the 30-minute YouTube video on what is the world. That will tie right into the article that I'm going to share today. So if you want to pick that up, you can go to YouTube and type in Michael Rice. It'll take you to our YouTube channel, and then look down the list or do a search for what is the world. 30 or 32-minute video there. Sort of a synopsis of what's presented in the 2-hour, what used to be a DVD but is now available. Also, of course, there's a download, but that 30-minute one hits all the highlights. So the opening words of the lesson in A Course in Miracles, what is the world? You've heard me say it 1,000 times because I think this is the most misunderstood and one of the most important lessons in the Course. The world is false perception. At the end of that sentence, there's a period. It's done. It isn't the world is bodies, the world is. The whole idea is to recognize that the mind is generating the world that we see. So the seemingly real world of forms, which are but pictures generated by the mind. Recognize that the mind is a conversion device. Much like, a few years back, you might remember when they changed what was a form of broadcast in the broadcast system from analog, which means pictures, to digital. They changed that over. And so people who had the old style TVs that didn't have a converter from digital to turn it into a picture had to go out and buy a converter. Or the government, in their great wisdom, decided that they needed, I guess, to keep that brainwash of TV going. So anybody that didn't go out and buy one, they said, we'll buy it for you. We'll pay for it. I want to keep you hooked on that, too. So they put a converter box in. And now, instead of an analog signal coming in and the TV converting into pictures, a digital signal comes in, and with a digital converter, that signal comes in, and the box converts it to a picture. Your brain is that. Your brain / your mind, not equating them, but connecting them, converts thoughts. I think this is such an important principle to get. Converts, thoughts into pictures. You have a digital converter box. So the thoughts you think turn into the picture world that you think you see outside of you. But that's a false concept. We've all been taught we open our eyes and we see what's happening in the world. That's just a simple, plain fraud. It's not true. So the seemingly real world of forms, trees, bodies, what have you, are but pictures generated by a mind based on partial information separated out of the given truth, born of error. So the world is false perception, born of error. The only aim of true forgiveness is the collapse of perception and the correction of error in the mind. That's the bottom line of forgiveness. Now notice, we live in a culture that says forgiveness is about how I'm going to let you off the hook and make you feel better, make me feel better. That's it. I just need to let you off the hook for the fact that my mind is producing pain. No. The only aim of forgiveness is to collapse perception and correct the errors in the mind. This thing called perception is a symbol. So we stand in a world of actuality, the world the Creator created. You'll remember I've quoted several times the Harvard research that says that in a time frame where 10,000 brain cells are firing, the max amount of data that goes into conscious awareness is 9 bits. So we have this 9-bit perceptual screen, and underneath it there are 10,000 measurable units of electrical activity happening. It has been estimated that in the actual world that the senses are reaching out to, that the mind responds with approximately 10,000 brain cells firing, that the actuality may contain as much as 20 trillion bits of data. So this thing we call perception, the 9-bit mind, gives us this picture, is a symbol, so a 9-bit symbol of what might be as much as a 20 trillion bit world. So if we called the actual world as created by the Creator truth, the 9-bit mind gives us a symbol of that actual creation. The body and all forms are appearances. They're misperceptions, constructs made by the mind out of fragments of information that we call thought disorders. So when a body shows up in some sort of pain, it is because there is a thought disorder behind that picture. If I'm feeling pain and I'm looking at the body that I call Bill over there, why am I in pain? Because of something Bill did? No. Because something's resonating in me in the way of a thought disorder that I'm putting into my brain's image of Bill. And when we replace that construct called perception with truth, then we'll move beyond what we call sight. We think we're seeing things out there. The truth is the eye sees nothing. The eye is a one-way valve. Light energy comes in. That energy hits the brain and causes brain cells to fire. So content moves within and creates the picture world that we see. But what the Course is alluding to here is that there is the ability to conceive of and to understand it, and it's like we don't even have a definition for this state of experience yet, but that the Course calls vision. So when I can, rather than count on my mind taking pieces of things and turning them into pictures, and I'm thinking that's what's actually out there, with vision, I get to interact with the actuality, and I get to comprehend it and understand it for the truth that it is, rather than comprehend and understand what I see, which is just a reflection of what I've projected into my brain's image of whatever it is that I think I'm looking at. And the Course goes on here to say, and with this vision, I will look upon a world and myself with charity and love. So whatever somebody's doing, the most horrible actor, when I'm in vision, when I'm connected to active present love, then I look on everything through that filter. And this is the word that Yeshua used when he spoke of, or when he was asked the question, what's most important in the law? Incidentally, the word law not meaning the rule of a superior as our culture would teach us, but law being the way life works. What's most important? Yeshua says, you've got to have Rahma. He didn't say love God, love neighbor as yourself. He said of Rahma for the Creator, for neighbor. And by so doing, you maintain self. So when we're living from being, then charity and compassion are present with us. So words, so the mind brings in information, And depending what that information is from the actuality that resonates, we get a symbol, a picture. Then we name that picture something with a word. So we've made up misperceptions of what the actuality is and think that the constructs our minds show us are actually true, when in fact, we have the actuality, 20 trillion bit world. We have perception, a 9-bit mind, a 9-bit picture. That's one generation away from the actuality. And then we name it. And that's 2 generations, twice removed. And the lesson, What is the World, makes the point. These pictures, generated by the mind, quote, have not left their source. In other words, any picture world that you hold is reflective of what's inside of you. And in another spot, the Course goes on to say, and these pictures produce a dense cover over truth. So if I hold some unresolved pain, rage, hate, fear, whatever it is, and the actuality in the world resonates that in me, then my perceptual mind constructs a picture out of that rage, fear, hate, vengeance, whatever it happens to be. And now my mind generates a picture that I plaster over top of and withhold the actuality from myself. And the Course gives a very succinct understanding of what that does. And it says, there is nothing so blinding as perception of form. For sight of form means understanding has been obscured. So if you're looking at something and you're understanding from what that picture is, what that construct is in your mind, you can rest assured that the actuality of whatever it is you think you're looking at has been obscured from you. So eyes, blinded by perception, the Course says, are made not to see. That nothing else, eyes are made that nothing else but form will be perceived. In other words, as long as we're looking, our brain is stuck with pictures. Pictures that reflect what's resonated in us. Pictures that reflect a partial world. And the purpose of forgiveness is to undo this blindness, literally perception, the air that covers truth. That's the challenge to be removed. And anytime you think of the word forgive, please think of removal rather than letting somebody off the hook. So if one lives in blindness of truth, how does one come to believe a lie and call it truth? Well, it's really easy. An event occurs in the world. That event, taken in by my senses, resonates certain information in me. The information that's resonated in me makes up a world of form, a world of pictures that I think I see out there, but is actually resonant within my own mind. When I insist that what I'm seeing is true and accurate, that it is truth, so I've taken a 9-bit picture and called it the truth about a 20 trillion bit world, which when you think about that's pretty silly. And by labeling it truth, I'm now living in blindness to truth. There's no room for truth to come in. So blindness to truth will remain no longer, the Course says, than the thought that gave it birth is cherished. Back to that lesson on what is the world. So I'm drawing on different ideas from the Course, but focused around this, what is the world? Blindness to truth will remain no longer than the thought that gave it birth is cherished. In other words, if somebody comes along and resonates in you a thought of that's based in hostility, then you'll produce a picture, and you'll swear that the picture holding the hostility belongs to whoever you think you're looking at. And when you do, then you're sure that that attribute belongs to someone else while you're the person who's feeling it. And it's based on thoughts resonated by something that happens in the actuality. And so let's say it's an angry thought. And you say, well, okay, I'm ready to get rid of all my anger and fear. I'm ready to be done with it. I'm ready to get into the actual world of the Creator. Yes, 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 I'm ready for it. But in order to have that, you have to give up this rage-based thought. But your rage-based thought is something that you think protects you. And so you want to make sure, just in case at some point in the future, I need it, I'm going to keep it. Now, you may say, oh, I don't want to deal with this rage anymore. I want to be finished with my rage. I want to be out of rage. I want to be done with it. But just let me keep enough of it to protect myself. Well, now what you said is you cherish that rage-based thought, and it can't be removed from you. And so you're going to tend to continue to generate a world based in that rage-based thought. And one day it might look like Bill, and another day it might look like Harry, and the next day it might look like Hortense, and then it might look like Mary and Charlie and anybody else that's handy. Or it might even be, that thought might even be used to help your brain to build its brain's picture of you as you look in the mirror. So it's time to be willing. Am I willing to give up that lesson in the Course that says, in my defenselessness, my safety lies? I actually like to add another word to that. In my defenselessness, my power and safety lies. So am I willing to move to a place where I give up every thought of attack in order that defense can disappear? So what does it take to rid ourselves of the thought that generates the appearance of form, this fake but real-looking world? What has to happen? First of all, we need to start to look at words, because many people live by words, and the words they use generate images in the mind, and therefore they exist in that world of pictures based in words. And the Course refers to that as the world of darkness. And what's needed here is an action of mind. Now, if you listen to the world, they would tend to tell you that, well, you just need to talk about it. Well, you just need to explain it. Well, if you accuse others of being wrong, then, you might get somewhere. Or we could argue using symbols of symbols, words. Do you think any of that's going to work? None of the above. Explaining, trying to understand, or figure out the world of false perception with words is 100% futile. You remember from the codependence work, for those who are in the codependence intensive, the number one pseudo-solution of the non-being mind is, if I could just figure this out. Well, you can't figure it out. So resolving pain or held traumas through any of the mechanisms I just talked about, that I just listed, is a total waste of breath. Another thing to understand here is that all perception, that is form, and words, symbols of form, are autobiographical. In other words, they tell us first about the content of our own minds before they tell us about the world that we think we're looking at. And when you think about, the pictures in the mind are symbols, words are symbols of symbols. It's pretty silly to think that symbols of symbols made up by us are going to explain the truth of what's actually going on. It's never going to happen. The reverse is true. It's going to be the collapsing of those things that will take us to the point where finally vision will be available and healing occurs. So the Course talks about the fact that there's a universal experience. Can't be done with theology, can't be done with words. This universal experience of love is the answer to the question. And where to put that in some sort of logical sequence, we're trying to make it logical. It isn't a logical process. It isn't an intellectual process. It isn't going to happen by figuring it out. The Course says that universal experience is beyond what can be taught, and that only the actual work of forgiveness can do that. From the section on the clarification of terms, the Course says, words cannot express what lies beyond them. Now, if we've endowed words with this magic power to teach or even speak the truth, we'll get lost in that world of words and void the experience of love the Course aims at preparing us for. Viewing words, being known for our much speaking, and leaving forgiveness undone leaves us filled with and hypnotized by words instead of the direct experience of the presence of love. Now again, our words and perceptions always tell us more about the content of our own minds than the world we think we're looking at, and that we pretend is outside of us. Perception is but a construct of the mind and exists nowhere but in the mind of the perceiver. The fact that perception comes from a particular mind is infallible proof of what is in that particular mind. As the Course says, I've given this all the meaning it has for me. Now, the meaning that my mind shows me for something may or may not describe actually what's happening for another. The one thing we can be assured of is that it is always accurate about the content of my mind. Now, I can approach something from one of two places. In order to, there's an old saying in the AA circles, if you spot it, you got it. Now, there are two positions from which you can spot something. One, you've resolved it. You've worked through the energy that's needed to be cleaned up around it. And two, you haven't touched it. If you have resolved it, then you'll see something happening because you've been there, done that. That's how you got the brain cells. That's how you can see it. But if your physiology remains totally and completely relaxed and you're in a perfect state of serenity, then you've got something that you've worked through. On the other hand, if you're all upset and disturbed and about something, you spot it because you got it. And of course, the mind wants to, people who are members of the one world religion of blame, it's all everybody else's fault, are talking about somebody else in that situation. But the content that my mind is showing me tells me something about me. And when I'm open to that, things change. Now, each person wants to, or tends to at least, want to make the denied, the dissociated, and disturbing and painful meanings they hold that they feel or cannot face directly true about others. And that's why they're projected. And projection works when I deny something. When I deny it, I dissociate from it. When I dissociate from it, if something comes along and resonates it, I never see the underlying energy, but I see the end result. I see the picture connected to that. Only now, because I'm blaming you, I see the picture connected to my brain's image of you. And I'm sure that it must be your fault or your problem. So again, denial is thinking or speaking as though something outside of us is the cause of what's moving inside of us, and or blaming another for the way we're using our own minds. Am I using my mind to keep me in disturbance, in pain, in turmoil, in trauma? If I am, I have to give up pretending that somebody else is making me do that and recognize I'm doing it because I'm doing it. So when we play the game of you made me mad, you made me sad, you hurt me, that disturbs me, I'm only thinking or feeling it's because of you, it's liar, liar, pants on fire. It's just not true. I'm thinking it because, and truly it isn't an act of thinking, but we call it that in the world, This is moving in me because it's in me. When I stop thinking, oh, I'm only feeling so bad because look at how you looked at me. Look what you said to me. That's why. No, excuse me. It's you that's using your mind to create all that trauma. What if you just forgave it? What if you just gave it up? How much easier would life be? How much more fun would it be if I'm willing to own and quickly give up, and in partnership with someone who's willing to own and quickly give up those things, rather than, no, I'm going to stay in this misery because of what you did. No. The day that I own that I'm staying in this misery because of what I'm doing, I now have a mechanism for working through it, because I can now start to see the evidence that makes it mine and start to forgive that evidence, start to move through that. So the conversation about projection needs to go. You made me sad. You hurt me. That disturbs me. So when one's in that dissociated state, they have the inability to directly access what's been denied and what's being projected, put into our brain's image of another, literally building that world. Which one? The world of false perception that we see and hallucinate is outside of us. Where those first words in that lesson, it's hard for many people to get that. The world is false perception. That's the world of perception the Course is aiming to correct. This internally generated world is false perception, and it has not left its source. It's still right there within you. That's why you're doing it again. And if that's not the way you want to function, if that's not the way you want to feel, what do you need to change within you in order to change it? Because the whole world's stuck on, you have to change it for me because it's your fault that I'm thinking this way. That's the essence of denial. So this is 100% an inside job. Through denial, we shut ourselves out of the experience of ourselves as the active presence of love. That's what cuts us off from it. So a good question to always ask yourself is, if they're the one with the problem, why am I the one with the pain and disturbance? And of course, we'll get people who will try to convince us by telling us that they've arrived. They'll have all kinds of ways of convincing you that they're the authority. The active presence of love in each one of us is the authority. Does that make sense? The active presence of love inside of each one of us is the authority. So if I have to tell somebody I've arrived, Jesus told me, I, that person's just trying to convince themselves. And of course, by having to do that, they're proving that they've not arrived where they're pretending to be. So once again, the Course goes back to, there's no answer. One of the games of the mind, well, just give me the answer, give me the answer, give me the answer. I want the answer. Just give me the answer. No. What the tools aim to give you. The tools aim to give you is not an answer, but an experience of the presence of love, a result of forgiveness. So the Course at one point says, seek only this, and don't let theology delay you. Don't get into the argument of the nitpicking that people can do, because that's all just an intellectual distraction. So how do you do this thing called forgiveness? Well, if you go to chapter 5, paragraph 6, section 7, the Course says, your part is to return your thinking to the point at which your error was made. Oh, gee, does that mean I have to lay on the psychiatrist's couch for 25 years and find the deep, dark, dirty, nasty thing that happened to me? Then it'll be okay? No, that's searching through memory for it. allowing your mind to return to the point where the original energy was engaged and taken into the system. You know, if it's a power person dynamic, let's say with a parent. Remember, the parent has more power over the child than the child does, is not functioning as love, and the child pursues it as survival. So if the adult's going into this fit of rage, how do I remember if I'm enraged today? How do I remember? How do I get to that? I don't do it through memory. I do it through forgiveness. It's a function of forgiveness. So the Course says your part is to simply allow all obstacles that you've interposed between you, the son or daughter of the Creator, and the Father. Allow those things to be removed, quietly removed, it says, forever. Go over every use we have for fear or any form of hostility. And now that the thought that gave birth to that world of pain perception is no longer cherished, that it has no value to you, it can be removed. If you have the slightest use for either a thought of attack or defense, it can't be removed from you, even if you want it to be removed. So all that needs to be done is to collapse the world of false perception. In the lesson on the two worlds, the Course says forgiveness is the only single-edged sword that accomplishes the curriculum of the Course. Forgiveness removes content. So the world, we started this lesson out. What is the world? The world is not a place. It's not a thing. It's not a body. It's not trees. It's not stars. That's not what you're trying to forgive. It's a state of mind. It's a state of false perception. The place that we've been trained is out there is not. It's a trick. No material world exists except it's a hologram reflecting a state of mind that this particular lesson says is born of error. So this world of pictures is a construct made up out of errant, unresolved past thoughts in a mind. The material world, what we call stuff. Now let's listen to Einstein here. Einstein says, on such things as matter, we've been all wrong. What we have heretofore called matter is energy, energy whose vibrations have been so low as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. Material world is false. It's false perception. It's a picture. It's an appearance born of error in the mind. It seems to exist only because we hold thoughts that produce that picture. So we hold the thoughts that produce the picture of the world of pain perception that we think is imposed on us from the outside. We think we see it, but in fact what we see is a hologram generated by the mind. It's an holographic projection based on unforgiven content acquired in the past. Generations and generations of it. There's no life in the holograms. There's no life in the symbols, words, the multitude of words that we try to explain something with does not exist except as the world made up by me to take the place of what the Creator gave me in creation. Since forgiveness is almost universally confused with pardoning, and therefore misperceived, misused, and or missed altogether, and therefore left undone, you need to come to the point where you can delineate the steps in forgiving. Or you're not forgiving. You know, let's imagine that somebody asks me what I do to drive a car, well, there's a set of principles involved in driving a car. There's a key. Now, the key might be a mechanical key that I put in the lock, or it might be a key fob, but there's a key. The key makes a connection, turns the ignition on. There's a starter motor, unless it's an electric car, and then I just need to open the pathway for the electricity to flow through it. I don't need to start anything. But there's some basic principles. Driving a car, it's got wheels. Well, gee, is it 8 wheels or 4 wheels or 3 wheels? Well, there are all sorts. But there are basic principles involved. I find it understanding that you can ask 99.9% of people how to forgive, and they'll say, oh, yeah, I forgive. And when you say, how do you do that? They can't say a word about it. If you can't speak about how you forgive, but you say you do forgive, you've got to be tricking yourself. Now, the world, again, this world between our ears, false perception, born of error that has not left its source. The Course says, but demonstrates an ancient truth. You will believe that others do to you exactly what you think you did to them, but once deluded into blaming them, you will not see the cause of what they, your projections, do, because you want the guilt to rest on them. How childish is this petulant device to keep your innocence? By the pretense of pushing guilt outside of yourself. Putting it outside of yourself means putting it into an image in your brain that you think is outside of you, but never letting it go. Projecting it into your brain's image of someone, but never letting it go. So the healing process requires looking within. Carl Jung says it beautifully. Those who look without dream. Those who look within awaken. So remembering that, we have basically what we might refer to as a 9-bit processor, not meaning that absolutely literally, but basically that's it. And that in us there is this super processor that when we invite it into activity can process, can break the links, can dissolve what is false. In Aramaic, it's called Ruka de Kudsha, feminine elemental force in us that undoes the effects of our errors and teaches us the truth. It could be spoken of as the higher power, the superconscious, the subconscious, primordial X. The Greeks translated out of the ancient Aramaic as the Holy Spirit, but there's nothing there about a disembodied spirit being. It speaks of an actual feminine elemental force in us. So the Course here says, bring each terrible effect to that power, whatever you choose to call it, that you may look together on its foolish cause and laugh. And then the Course goes on to say, the secret of healing is but this. You are doing this to yourself. No matter what the form of the attack, this is still true. Because it is in your perception you are being assaulted. And the root of that perception, hidden, is the thought of either defense or attack, that energetically is a call for that experience to come to you. Forgiveness is the key to giving up your call for attack, and will result in defenselessness and safety. Now, in the context of this, remember to never forgive anyone, never forgive yourself, but continuously. That is, remove defense and attack continuously. You're going to have to ultimately, if you have a mind that's in pain and turmoil, you're going to have to do the thing that you're most terrified to do, and that is, and this is a quote from the Course, you may wonder why you must look upon your hatred and realize its full extent. You must uncover the part of your mind that you've hidden from yourself that produces this whole world, this whole construct called perception. So the only question, and it can be framed in several different ways, is how do I collapse this world of false perception? How do I forgive? How do I remove this loveless world of holograms that are so detailed and real from my mind? Interesting statement in Lesson 247, forgiveness is the only means whereby Christ's vision comes to me. Without forgiveness, I'm still as blind as, and I see these projections rising to attack me. How is it done? In Lesson 164, we're told, remember correctly, it's paragraph 8 in Lesson 164, open the curtain in your practicing by merely letting go all the things you think you want. Notice that you're never upset about something as long as everybody's fulfilling all the goals you have for them. Notice you're only upset when someone violates a goal that you hold for them. You only get angry with people. You only become disturbed with people, or you pretend to be angry with people and disturbed with people. Really, it's just anger and disturbance in your own field. But the only time that you're an upset, unless you're just a generally miserable person, is when someone isn't fulfilling the goals that you hold for them. So here's the core of forgiveness a la first century Aramaic Yeshua and the Course in Miracles, Lesson 164. Open a curtain in your practicing by merely letting go all the things you think you want. In other words, you cancel your goal. In Aramaic, the word forgive is shabag, and it literally translates to cancel. Course refers to your goals as your trifling treasures. You know, if you recognize that you've given over the truth of your being as this awesome created essence of love to some sort of disturbance and upset, and you think you can regain it, you know, if you think you can regain the truth of your being, the thing you really want, if you think you can restore yourself to the active presence of love, by getting somebody to fulfill a goal for you, do you think you can do that by getting someone to fulfill a goal for you? Your mind is bizarre. Course says let go all the things you think you want, your trifling treasures put away. What happens when you put them away? The perception that you have is the driver that causes your mind to use untoward energies to build your perception. So when you remove the driver, perception collapses. And this particular lesson, 164, says, and then you leave a clean and open space within your mind for Christ to come. This and only this is the core of how you forgive. Now, as I said, if you're going to drive a car, there are wheels, there's a steering wheel, there's an engine, lots of variables, but their basic principles are there. If somebody tells me, oh, I just forgive by, well, you know, I just kind of remember that, you know, the offense never happened. That's an answer I've heard from people. Excuse me. No, that's remembering that the offense never truly happened. That's not forgiveness. I mean, when I've asked people, and I've asked many, many, many people, how do you forgive? They'll tell me they have. And they'll go, well, you just forgive. No, there are steps to it. There's an object of attention. There are steps to forgiveness. There's an object of attention, somebody or something you're focused on, perhaps yourself, perhaps the world situation, perhaps a particular person, and you have a goal for them, your trifling treasure. Now you put it away. You cancel your goal. In Aramaic, the word forgive is shabag. It means to cancel. You cancel your goal. And now that your trifling treasure is put away, your pained perception, the whole false world that you've generated, collapses in on itself. And when it collapses in on itself, it gives you access to the memory of what's beneath the pain. And now that you have a clean and open space where perception usually shows up, the pain is dissolved by the active presence of love. You remember the Course talks about you must remember the distorting power of the way you want it to be. To forgive is to cancel, to put away the things you think you want, those things that are currently, those goals that are currently driving your perception. When your perception collapses, it collapses as a result of canceling the goal that drives it. And at least for an instant in that moment, your alter, your conscious mind, the place you can alter, not A-L-T-A-R, but A-L-T-E-R things, is left free of what you placed on it. Collapsing in on itself, the root of your perception is exposed, and if love is present, that root dissolves automatically, instantly. There are a variety of ways to do this. This is how it's done. And then what the Course says is the world you do not want is brought to the one you do. And when that errant thought is brought forward in the presence of active love, it is dissolved and forgiveness occurs. It is removed. Check out the lesson, What is the World?, on our YouTube channel, and create the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world.